Next section we have is shout-outs. So this is where we get to read the mind of the audience and what's on people's minds in terms of data analytics, kind of open it up for questions, what's on people's minds. Is there any just general questions that folks have?
So there's a lot of data, right? And insurance companies buy data, and there's a lot of companies selling data. So I'm wondering, so for example, there's a company that buys data for California wildfire. And they buy the data last year, but now there's like 9,600 new wildfires, but that company doesn't have as good data as this company. How quickly does a company make a decision to change who they buy data from because the data is better over here than it is over there? Because if they buy the better data, they're going to sell more policies or avoid more losses. How quickly can you make that decision, and do you spin or pivot that quickly?
No. So this goes back to what Bernard was talking about on, you've got to change the foundation. You've got to change the chassis of the car to be ready to plug in the new, okay? So to have a more, system that's more microservices, headless architecture, so that, not just from the operational systems, but the data that's flowing into that. So that is top of mind for us because of exactly what you're saying. We know that the decision we made today could change tomorrow from a data integration standpoint. We haven't, be honest, we haven't been good at that, right? But it is extremely top of mind, and we're getting better at it, definitely.
Maybe one thing that I'd add to that, I think there's a lot of changes that have probably happened more recently in the data and analytics space in terms of techniques, technology. If you think about data, how fast it can come in, how fast can you actually build predictive models. The other aspect you got to think about is usability. So when you think about predictive models, who's using it, and can they adopt that quick? So if it takes you minutes to spin up a model, it may take you months to get it implemented because somebody's got to buy into it. So until that concept changes and people get more comfortable with this stuff, I think that's going to actually impact that situation. Is there any other questions? I see one behind the pole before I trip here.
So I've met with a few of the business leaders of several different insurance companies. So I think you started to touch on it a little bit already, but who's really driving the direction in which your companies are starting to look at the data? So is it the business side that's saying, here are the 10 questions that we know are going to return all of this value? Or is it your side that's saying, hey, we've spent $10 trillion analyzing everything in the world, and here's how you can start to improve on your performances on the other side? So I'm just trying to understand what are the synergies within that are driving your data analytics and what direction you're going in.
So you're trying to figure out who you need to talk to?
Yeah.
I think it depends on the culture of different companies. A lot of times it may start at the top, and there's a visionary leader that's saying we have to do things differently, and that gets pushed down. When you look at insurance companies these days, it's been a proliferation in the last, I don't know, even just last 5 years, where a position that never existed before, chief data officer, chief information officer, or roles like that are being built up at the very highest levels of the organization to drive that that vision throughout the organization. It can be tough, though. I mean, the priorities of the company can flux from 1 year to the next or something along those lines. A lot of times what we're talking about is investing a lot of money, and there's a lot of priorities that have to be kind of stacked up against each other. But at the end of the day, I think it kind of happens from both ends. There are parts of the organization who are deeply knowledgeable, deeply engaged, deeply passionate about analytics, data, and whatever else, And if they can be heard, if they have a voice at the table or whatnot, that's going to be from the bottom up. But like I said, it's always helpful to have an executive at a high level that's got that vision as well, and it kind of comes from both ends at that point.
I would just add that it's 3 different groups at our company working together. It's my team, the data and analytics team, the business side, and IT. But I do view our group, my group, as we should be the ones looking forward and thinking about the art of the possible for the future, because we have the best lenses to do that, and we should be challenging the business to be looking forward. But they could be bringing, questions also, and they should be. But in my view, it's our job to be looking at the art of the possible.
All right. Oh, we got another volunteer here.
So I have a question about, within your company's practice, how are you defining, and I also mentioned in one slide is data ops. How are you defining data ops, your data ops practice within your company, and think about it as people, process, and technology? So what kind of roles are you hiring? What kind of technologies are you establishing to support that? And then what kind of process and governance are you building around that? Is it really more the 4 groups that Renee talked about all interacting together in a more of an informal way, or are you actually formalizing that as a practice within your company?
Maybe start with that. I mean, so I work at a smaller company, so we might operate a little bit differently. But from our standpoint, I think one of the things that we've built out is we have a dedicated data team that is responsible for just overall what I would call data structure projects. So they're looking at things like data warehouse, conformity of specific data standards, and building out productionized queries, and really helping the business get the data that they need, or at least providing them with the tools to get the data that they need. In terms of the analytics, I think that's something that is sort of farmed out either to the business or actuarial, but we all work very closely with our data team, and then with our own IT resources as well if we need some additional horsepower for, let's say, putting data up in the cloud environment like S3 or Redshift or something like that. But really for us, I mean, I would say it's we've created a very collaborative environment, so a lot of these conversations that we have just tend to work rather fluidly as long as we can get the right data structure in place.
Maybe one thing I'd add to that, at XXL, it's interesting because I think maybe older companies that have been around think in terms of traditional silos, right? In terms of IT, technology, analytics, actuarial, business, things like that. And I think, everybody seeing how these things impact their personal lives, understand that these things can, benefit their career, or could benefit, the value of the company. And that's happening, or that's forcing these conversations to happen. So, these silos or traditional silos are really starting to break down. I can tell you, I'm actively involved in a lot of these conversations that cross these different functions and figuring out how do we do this in a more productive way on a go-forward basis.
I think that's definitely true, but just I also think there's a role for experts, right? I think if we there's certain skill sets for data engineers, or sometimes we call them data wranglers, right? And we need that deep skill set of those folks. To be honest, I don't really care if they have a moniker of IT or business or analytics, or to me that distinction doesn't matter, right? But the skill sets are the important thing.
Great. Any other burning questions out there? No? All right, well, thanks, everyone, and I will turn over to Stacy.
Thank you, Jim. Jim did a great job tonight. Thank you very much. It was, I've known Jim for a while, and it was very suiting topic for him, so thanks, Jim. And I learned tonight that the reason he did such a great job, can I say this? Too bad I'm saying it. He was a DJ for a lot of years, so he did a great job. At this time, I'd like to call up Betsy and Argia. Is Argia still here? Where is that buzz coming from?
That's not, I think it's only your construction, it's not the sound system.
Oh, it's not the sound system. Okay.
It will be this time.
All right. So it's excuse me. One more thing on shout outs. Is there anybody that would like to tell the audience something? Either you need help with something, there's some recent success that you had that you'd like to share with folks. Is there anything within our community that people would just like to make known? I know, everyone's like, Oculus. All right, so it's time. So I thought tonight would be perfect to get Betsy and Argia a little bit more involved in the front of the room. Everybody knows them because they're the first faces they see when they walk in the door. These guys have been helping us for over a year now. They are rock stars, and we really appreciate it. So we'll give them the honor of pulling the ticket and announcing the number.
Oh man, pressure.
So we are not only the first face you watch us, but you will be happy the face that gives you with Oculus now.
Yes.
So remember us.
Yes. Okay, so here we go.
So lucky number 139177. Is there a drop ticket somewhere? Is there a drop ticket somewhere? Yes.
Winner! Congratulations.
All right, and thank you everybody for coming out. We're welcome to, we'll get, can we get our winner up here? We'll take a picture. But thank you very much everybody for coming. Hopefully you had an awesome time. We'll have our next one of these events in September, and hopefully you'll keep your eyes peeled for registration announcements on the upcoming conference in October. Have a great week.
Thank you.